welcome back, everybody, again. This one to a very special mindset mastermind, our 30 minutes every morning to get our head right, our inspiration, our motivation, and get fired up for some perspiration of having a great day doing the work that we know we all need to do. And so I have a special guest today. As you guys know, we do this based on content, and we did Radical Edge here. And we have the actual author, Mr. Stephen Farber, in the room to have a conversation today and really dive deep on all of his elements of leadership and why he is such a leader in space, because love is just damn good business. And to introduce him, what I want to do is, well, just tell a story, because this really is the heart of the individual that's showing up for us today. Back approximately 20 years ago, I went through one of the community leadership programs in Roseville, California, where I was living at the time. So spent a year in leadership training with the local association. And as part of that, our gift for graduation was this new book that just recently came out called Radical Leap. Read the material, fell in love with the material, and was headed to a national stage in the home inspector space to teach. And so I tracked down the author on this new thing called Facebook, if I remember correctly. It might have even been MySpace, but I'll say it was Facebook. And sent a message asking for permission to teach the material when I was on that national stage. And 30 minutes later, my phone rings. And I don't recognize the number. And here is Steve Farber entering my life live from someone who just sent a message saying, I love your content. I want to share it. Do I have permission? And this has turned into an almost 20-year relationship of always having someone in the leadership space who's loving on me, helping me, giving me guidance, and making me better every single day. So with that, man, you've got the man, the myth, the legend, Stephen Farber. As always, guys, this is your room, and yet he's part of the you now. So, Steve, I'm going to let you kind of kick off, if you will, just a little high-level background. What the heck has led to this amazing writing and inspiring career that you've had?
Well, thank you. First of all, thank you, Russ. Thanks to all of you guys for having me here. And thanks for that story, because, the book, as you mentioned, Radical Leap, is 20 years old this year, which is kind of an amazing thing. And I'm still meeting people through it. I mean, it's amazing. But I decided early on in my author career that if somebody was going to take the time to reach out to me, send me an email, send me a message, somebody was going to actually take the time to do that, to share their experience in reading the book, I was going to call them. It just seemed like the right thing to do. And I've gotten some pretty funny responses. I remember there was a guy, his name is Eric, also has become a friend over the years. I called him and he was like, "What is this?" I said, "Yeah, Steve Farber." He goes, "Yeah, sure." And he hung up on me. So I got all kinds of reactions over the years. I had to call him back a couple of times. So I said, "No, dude, don't hang up." But anyway, thank you for reminding me of that story. And it's a good reminder to keep doing that. I haven't been quite as disciplined about it as I used to be, but the result is I've made some incredible friends. And it was something that I never anticipated would happen. This was not on my radar screen. So to answer your question, Russ, my background is from, I started out, as you can probably gather by my background, which is not a virtual background, it's an actual background. I'm a musician, and I started out wanting to do that for a living. I also started out quite young with a family. By the time I was 24 years old, I had 2 kids, and I was trying to be a musician. And you see where this story is going. Being a musician for a living and feeding people seemed to be mutually exclusive pursuits. So I gave up the music and I went into business. And I went into a business. It wasn't a strategic decision. It was I needed to make money. And I had a friend who was in the commodities futures business. And he said, come on, I'll show you the ropes. And I got into that business, not because I loved it, but because I needed to make money. And I discovered that I was an entrepreneur. And within a short period of time, again, before I was 30 years old, I had my own small brokerage firm. So that was my baptism of fire into the world of business, because I was responsible for everything as an entrepreneur is, as you guys know. And I had to learn it all. And the primary thing that I learned was that I loved business. I loved building a team. I loved working with people. The problem was I loved business, but I hated that business. And when you're in a business that you own and you hate it, that is not a good mix. That's not a good chemistry. That's not going to end well. So it was torture. It was torture for years. And I finally got out, and there's a whole story as to how that crashed and burned and the decisions that I made as a result. But I found this kind of universe of, at the time, was more kind of training. So I was good in front of people. I had I had business background. So I started doing training workshops. And this was back in 1988. And I started my career in this field, and ended up working with some people who were some of the great management and leadership thinkers of our day. Tom Peters, who wrote a book called In Search of Excellence, and just retired last year at 81 years old, is one of the greatest management thinkers of our time. I was vice president of his company in the 90s. Jim Kouzes was the co-author of the Leadership Challenge. Kouzes and Posner was the president of the Tom Peters Company. He's was and still is my most significant mentor. And I started to get experience in all these companies, working with all these people in all these different industries. And I, as you can imagine, I learned a lot from my clients. And I developed a point of view. I developed an opinion. Because I started to ask myself, okay, now that I've been so deeply immersed in Tom Peters' work and Jim Kouzes' work, and my other mentor, Terry Pierce, who unfortunately passed away a few years ago, who did incredible work around authenticity in the times where we hardly ever talked about it. And I just started to ask myself, well, given all of this that I've been immersed in and helping clients with, what do I think about all this? If I had the kind of influence where I could flip a magic switch and have everybody do something or get something, what would that be? And that is where the LEAP framework emerged from. The first thing I would want them to know and to understand is that this is really all about love. That your primary job as a leader is to cultivate love. Because if you don't love the work, and you don't love the people on your team, and you don't love the clients that you're serving, then how are you going to create an experience that they're going to love? And if they don't love doing business with you, you don't have a business. So that became really obvious to me. And I didn't make it up. It wasn't like I fabricated this from whole cloth. It was observation. And I just decided I need to shine the spotlight on that thing. And once I did that, everything else kind of emerged from it. It was, if you cultivate love, you generate energy in yourself and in people around you, and you could use that energy to inspire people to be audacious in what they're trying to achieve and try to change the world for the better. And none of that makes any difference unless you're proving that you mean it through your actions. So that's LEAP: love, energy, audacity, and proof. And that's what I tried to capture in that first book, and that's what I started speaking about and working with clients about more than 20 years ago. I was talking about this stuff and working with it 4 years before the book came out. But it's been a ride, man. So the Radical Edge, which you guys have dived, is that right? Into, was book number 2 that came out in 2006 in its first edition. And then in 2009, Greater Than Yourself came out, which is about significant mentoring. The premise there is the greatest leaders become the greatest leaders by making others greater than themselves. and they're all written in that parable form. And they've had several editions, and I've worked with this body of work with different clients and individual clients. I mean, I do, executive coaching, and I keynote speaking and consulting and all that stuff. And then just to bring it up to date, I'm about a third of the way through a new book. The working title is called The Radical Promise, and it's all about the challenge and importance and power of doing what you say you will do. So it's about credibility, and it's based on Jim Kouzes and Barry Posner's research on credibility. It's being written. It's being written. I wish it were being written. I'm writing it. Wouldn't that be great? I mean, chat doesn't do it. It just doesn't do it. It's like, hey, write a book for me. Not this kind of book. Anyway, my co-authors in this book are Jim Kouzes and Barry Posner. So it's come full circle. I'm writing a book with my mentors, and it's quite an interesting journey. I'm loving it, and it's terrifying because I don't want to let them down, because I'm writing it, and it's based on their research, and they're giving me a lot of input, and they're actually characters in the story. So it's a lot of fun, and I wish it were done, but it's not. Anyway, so that brings us up to speed. What I would love to do is just turn this over to you guys and ask, questions, comments, concerns, emotional outbursts, whatever you got. I'm happy to hear it. And I may not have the answer to your question, but I'll certainly give it my best.
And you all know my model, my format. I'm watching mics on attendees, and I'll call you out. And of course, I can talk the whole time. Here's the fun part, though, Steve. Man, for once, they're all lighting up right out of the gate. So I'm going here in quote order that I see. Miss Beth, what do you got, my dear?
Hey, Steve, first of all, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah,
it's a real pleasure. I've read your books and enjoyed them all. And my question is less about the books and more about your coaching. And what would you say are the 3 top ways that people submarine their efforts to be successful?
By submarine, you mean?
Undermine, sabotage.
Oh, okay. All right. Let's see. What would it? I don't know that I can prioritize it into the top 3, but I'll just off the top of my head. First and foremost is they don't close the gap between aspiration and action. So in other words, it's very easy to say, this is what I want to do, what I want to be, what I want to become as a leader. That's super easy to do. But then when it comes to what will be required of me to make that happen, I think the primary response, I'll characterize it this way, is when people get a handle on, oh, well, if I want to become that kind of leader, I have to do these kinds of things. I don't want to. That's what it sounds like. That's I'm comfortable doing it this way. This way I've always done it, and I just want it. It's like what I said a few minutes ago. If the book could just write itself, that'd be great. It doesn't happen that way. You have to do the work. So that's number one. Maybe number one. Another one, I'll put it that way, is I think I would characterize it as a lack. There's a lack of confidence on one side, and the flip side of that is overconfidence. So a lack of confidence is, I don't know that I have what it takes to be that kind of leader. And I really I enjoy working with that kind of challenge, because what I learned early on is that maybe not all of us have what it takes to be like the greatest leader of all time,
Yay, Erica.
but everybody can get better at it. So it's about so the confidence comes with taking little steps, trying new things, getting some success. The overconfidence is, yeah, I got it figured out. I know what to do. I'm already great, and oftentimes there's a gap between their self-perception and how other people are perceiving them. So I'll leave it at that, so we can take some more questions. But that's a great question. Thank you.
All right, Celeste, you are next in the hopper, my dear. What do you got?
I happened to notice.
Nope, I muted you instead of somebody else. That's on me, Celeste. You happen to notice.
Yep. Hi, Steve. Thank you also for
Hi.
being here this morning.
Of course.
I was on YouTube and I noticed that you have the Farber Hour.
The Leap Hour.
The Leap Hour. Okay,
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm calling it Farber Hour, but it's
Okay,
Leap Hour. And in that mindset, I was able to listen to you and your friend Maurice talking about your backstory.
Yeah.
And so prior to coming in today, I was able to listen to that. A couple of questions. One is, are you still doing this Leap Hour?
Well, I just started doing this Leap Hour. So yes, the answer is yes. We've done, I think, 9 episodes so far. So if you go to my YouTube channel, the Extreme Leadership Institute, there's a playlist we have set up, so you can scroll through all of them. And Russ is going to be on that show. You just got to get in there and schedule it. And so the premise behind the Leap Hour is what I started out with this morning, is that all these incredible people that I've met through that book, I'm inviting them on this show to hear their story. It's kind of the idea came about to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the Radical Leap. And by the way, one of the things we're doing as a part of that, which I'd like you guys to partake in, is I decided the thinking was, the Radical Leap is an evergreen book. It's still relevant, maybe more relevant today than it was 20 years ago, funnily enough. And I just want more people to experience it. So I'm just making the audiobook version of it available for free. So you can go to Radical Leap. This is me multitasking. RadicalLeap.org and download the audiobook, and then I can read it to you.
Yeah, he's actually made that available to you guys today. So I appreciate you bringing that to us. Klein, you got a lot of background noise, so I'm going to hold on you. Nafritha, the floor is yours, and then Don Hobbs, you're right behind that.
So I have 2 questions, but I'm gonna ask one, and if we have time, I'll come back. So first I want to say thanks so much, Steve, for joining us. And it's so weird because I was listening to you talk to Coach Russ this morning when he first came on. And it was really weird because I'm used to hearing your voice on the audiobook,
Yeah.
and you sound just like that. And I was like, oh my God, it was a little freaky, but I guess it just kind of highlighted, right, that I'm so grateful to have you in the space. Like, this is awesome to hear you on the audio, and now I can hear you in person. So thanks again for taking your time to join us.
Thank you.
And as I listen to you talk about, your experience of, trying some things, you kind of had this idea of entrepreneurship, right? This band, this music, this love that you had, not really sure how to maneuver that. Then the kids came along, right? And life happened. Then you tried some things, and then you kind of like, it was a light, like, no, I am an entrepreneur, right? And then you kind of figured out, how do I maneuver this? And you got some coaches or, some mentors to kind of give you some insight on how to do that. And then you mentioned one thing, the primary job of a leader is love, right? Loving on people. And we kind of dove into that several times in kind of talking about this book. So my question to you is, in a world where we were initially introduced to keep personal and business separate, how was that for you emerging this idea of love? Because we hear love and probably people start to their mind, well, our minds probably will go one way. And I know for me, initially, you don't hear business and love, right? You're like,
You
wait, no,
do.
that doesn't fit. Exactly. So I'm curious to know, what were some of those challenges for you in bringing that into a world, right? This new idea of love in the business or in the workplace. What were some challenges that you faced and how did you overcome those?
Yeah, thank you. This first of all, this line between business and life is just something that we made up. What I mean by that is what I just said: business and life. And you guys nodded your heads. Yeah, business and life. Just think of just the implication of that phrase: in business and in life. Well, what does that imply? It implies that those are two different things. In other words, it implies that business is not life. There's business and there's life. And that is just patently absurd. I mean, if business is not life, then what is it? Death? I mean, what is it? It's life is life. And some of that life we spend in business, and some of that life we spend in our personal endeavors. Some of that life we spend with colleagues, some of that life we spend with family, but it's all life. And we are the same person at work as we are at home. So love applies everywhere. And yes, it is, let's say, a bit unconventional in a business context. We're not used to saying the word love and business in the same sentence, many of us. So when I first wrote the book, it's really interesting because my biggest concern, or one of my biggest concerns, when the book was being published, was that the content would not live up to the title, right? The Radical Leap. That's radical. And to me, none of this seemed radical. It just seemed obvious. So I thought that people were going to go, well, there's nothing radical in here. This is the same old shit, right? And turned out it was pretty radical for a lot of people. So at first, when I first started getting up on stage and talking about love and business, I was nervous. It was a little frightening. But what I found is, interestingly, the resistance to that idea is much lower than you would think it is. Once people understand what we mean by this, right? It's not romantic love, obviously. It's about creating that experience of connection with and trust in and enjoyment of whatever it is that we're offering as a product or service, and whatever kind of a environment we're trying to create in our businesses and our connection to our work and all that. Then it's like, oh yeah, okay, I get it. And once people understand that, and that's something that I can explain in a few seconds, which I will right now. As a business, your competitive advantage comes from your customers loving what you do for them. The only way to make that happen in a meaningful and sustainable way over time is to create an environment that people love working in, and you cannot do that unless you love it yourself first. That's it. And once people get that, then the question is, okay, how do I do it? And what should that look like? But it's not, it's a bunch of California touchy-feely crap, For some people, it is. For some people, they will dismiss it out of hand and have no interest in pursuing it. And those are not my clients. That person is not going to hire me. And that's fine. I am not in the business of convincing anybody in anything. And I think that's probably true of all of us, right? I'm not in the business of convincing people. I'm in the business of confirming what they already know to be true, but haven't acted on it. And when they hear these ideas, it emboldens people to step up and say, yeah, I've always known that, but I didn't think I was supposed to do that. So now that I know that it's good, I'm going to pursue it. That's where the breakthroughs come from.
I got one other follow-up to that, Steve.
Yeah.
And then, guys, I've got Don next. I've got Client on the radar. I got Carrie. I've seen you guys key in. So thank you for that. One of the things I picked up in the read of Radical Leap this year that has never jumped off the page on this love piece is the importance of that word cultivate. You put that there for a reason.
Yeah.
It's not just loving on people, it's cultivate love. Can you expound on what you mean by that? And then Don Hobbs, your next step.
Sure. So the whole LEAP framework is every one of those attributes is preceded by a verb. So it's cultivate love, generate energy, inspire audacity, provide proof. So cultivating love means that I want to create an environment where that grows, just like you cultivate a garden, right? Where it becomes the norm, not the exception. And as a leader, I need to look for ways not just to quote unquote love on people, but to be overt and intentional about how I'm doing it so that I can create an example that others will emulate and then encourage them to emulate it. That's cultivation.
Awesome. Don Hobbs, brother, you're up. Get that mic hot.
Hey, brother. Thank you. Appreciate it, Russ. And Steve, good to see you again. Thanks for being such a big part of our community. And Russ loves bringing you in here, and we love having you. So thanks for doing that.
Appreciate that.
Couple things I wanted to say. Nafritha, first of all, I loved your question. That was really a great question. And I'm going to add to that real quickly. And I was just grateful for your book. Actually, I came in just to say thanks for the book and thanks for everything that you're doing for the world. But I was wanting to touch base on Nafritha's question, which was really, you answered it so well. And I've always talked about the holistic approach. We're one whole person. We're not separate people. We're not, business people and as you said, life. I like that phrase. But we're not just, don't have a personal life and a business life. We have life and we have our world. And the more that we understand that we are we take a holistic approach to everything we do, then there's no separation between the love, and it's just a way of living. And I think that's the part that people miss, is we're trying to be business people and we want to feel love and give love, but we're not realizing that it can be done all in the same place. Again, clearly we're not talking about romantic love all over the place. We're talking about that feeling of connectedness and heart-to-heart connection. So I think your approach is amazing. I love that you. It's not that you're not the only person talking this, but it's a rare form of people that are bringing this conversation to our business world today. And Steve, I really appreciate everything you're doing to make that connection between the heart and our business. It's really been awesome to watch your stuff. I didn't get a chance to go through the Radical Edge with the team, but I'm really very pleased and very proud of all the things that you're teaching. Thank you for being such a bright light.
Thank you for the kind words, Don. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Don, awesome as always. And you and I probably need to talk later today about just how audacious I should be when it comes to getting Steve plugged in over here. Because I got some things in mind, man, and we're going to see what happens with that.
I like it.
All right. Hey, client, you're next up, brother. Get that mic hot. Make sure you're not in that windy environment, and let's do it.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Hey, Steve, thank you so much, man. The book has been real, a lot to think about. I think that you may have somewhat answered my question. It's real simple. What to do when loving someone in regards to the business life combination is just damn hard.
Yeah.
Man, there are some people, it's like, listen, I know I got to deal with you because you're in business with me, or I know that I'd like to have the attributes that you're bringing to the table. But man, getting to that point, wow.
Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah. Nobody said it was going to be easy. Yeah, it's a messy process, client. I mean, there is the advanced maneuver in this, if maneuver is even the right word, is, we tend to put our efforts into the people who are easy to love and who will reciprocate. So I even say it myself, do what you love in the service of people who love what you do. So the ideal scenario as a business person is you're doing what you love, but you're using that to serve others. And the advanced maneuver there is no matter what they're like, right? So it's that heart of service, just because it's the right thing to do. And I can love you unconditionally. I can. I have that potential. Sometimes it feels like I can't, but I can certainly try. And the ideal scenario is, in a business context in particular, if you do that, you're going to have clients that raise their hand and say, thank you, I love what you do for me. And those are our ideal clients, right?
So just because it's the right thing to do, point blank, period, end of story.
Yes, and there's always an and. That doesn't mean that should be a person, that's a person that I should be in business with. I can love you and fire you. I can love you and let you go. I have fired clients over the years. It's just not a fit. And I've had to fire employees back in the days when I was responsible for employees. Doesn't mean I didn't love them. In fact, sometimes that's why. I love you and you're in the wrong place. So I love you so much, I'm going to liberate you for you to find your ideal scenario elsewhere, because it ain't here. So there's always an and in this. It's not formulaic, but I think what we can all do is always check, am I coming from the right place? And then people will do with that what they need to do with it. And I'm going to still need to make choices about the people that I want to be in business with or not. Now, if I'm in a situation where I have no choice, this is somebody that I absolutely have to do business with, then I just got to keep trying. And the question I would ask in that scenario is, how well do you really know that person? So in the Radical Edge, we talked about fascination, right? So are you taking the time to really understand who that person is, know their story, know their backstory, know their challenges, know their aspirations? And can you develop that fascination for this person who's so frustrating that you're going to move towards them instead of away from them, just to figure out what the hell's going on?
Curiosity over judgment.
Yes.
Is a great combination. So I see Carrie, you're on my list. Glenna, you're up, and Nafritha, you're still waiting in the wings on that second question. Carrie, the floor is yours.
So again, thank you so much. It's so exciting that you're here and you took the time to spend with us and to share those the information links with us. Thank you. So my question for you, I wrote it down. Hold on. So you emphasize the work-life balance in the book, and I was just curious, how do you go about maintaining those things? If you would share like one habit, maybe.
For myself?
Yes.
I may not be the best example, because my work and my life is just naturally intertwined. My wife is my business partner. My work is in expressing my point of view on the world and helping people to get better at what they do, which is something I love doing. Mm-hmm. But I will tell you that there is something specific that I've done over the last several years. And that is, the early part of my story where I gave up music, I brought it back. I brought it back, and I've integrated it into my work. And what that looks like is oftentimes when I'm doing a keynote, I will play music in it. So I've created an opportunity where I have literally played my original music for audiences of literally thousands of people, which is what I had set out to do. It just did not anticipate it happening in this way. You got a captive audience and say, okay, bust out a guitar. What are you going to do? Get up and leave? So yeah, and that's been a really interesting process. So right now I'm writing that book, and I'm also recording an album. And
Congratulations. That's awesome.
thank you. It's
Oh, very good.
it's really fun. It's really exciting. And the balance comes in to management of time, right? Because it's very easy to get, I'm supposed to be writing this book and I get something from, the producer of the album that I'm working on. It's like the latest mix of a song that we're doing. I was like, I want to hear that right now. The balance comes in terms of its time. But here's what I realized, and I would encourage you to pursue a similar line of thinking for yourself. I sat down one day and I took out my what and I just started journaling. And because I felt like I was being pulled in all these different directions. And the insight that came out of that for me was that this is not a matter of balance, because it's really all the same thing. That really everything that I'm doing, speaking for myself, everything that I'm doing is an act of creative expression. Sometimes it sounds like music. Sometimes it looks like writing. Sometimes it's this kind of conversation that we're having. Sometimes it's in the coaching work that I do. Sometimes it's the performance art of delivering a keynote, but it's all that creative expression. So on a deep level, I didn't feel a conflict anymore because I realized it's all the same thing. So the balance just comes in time management, which I am notoriously bad at. So it's a bit of a struggle. It's a bit of a struggle for me. Most of my writing time, the time that I set aside for writing, most of that time I spend berating myself for not writing. So I'm always having to work at it. And I've done this 5 times now with books. So this is number 6. But so for me, just to summarize that, the balance is in the time management. It's not in the kind of the priorities, the challenges, that they're all a high priority. And that's a good problem to have, I gotta say.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Carrie.
And know that, in our little world, Steve, we've got a model for that whole time management, time organization process. Maybe you and I can have a chat sometime about what we do with that.
Yeah.
See if that's something we can help you implement.
That would be
I'd
great.
love to bring it into the Radical Leap world. Hey, Glenna, my dear, you're up. What do you got?
Good morning. I want to join everybody else in thanking you for being here. And the answer you just gave to the question from Carrie, that's amazing that you doing business and living your dream at the same time. My question to you is, in the book you mentioned where you sent your daughter off to Italy by herself. As parents, were you and your wife scared? Even though you were brave, you were encouraging her, trying to lift her up and make her give her brave comments and ideas and everything. But were you and your wife scared?
That's a great question. Actually, I was not. I mean, I was concerned. I was a little concerned, for her safety and all that. But I wasn't scared because I knew that she was capable of it, and I knew that she was gonna grow. It comes back to that confidence issue that we were talking about earlier. She was gonna grow into her confidence, and she did, and it really had quite an impact on her for the rest of her life.
Great.
And I'll tell you an update on her is that Angelica is now 47.
Wow.
And she she's facing a challenge now that few of us face. Years ago, she had LASIK surgery done on her eyes. It went bad. And over the last few years, she has gone, she's now legally blind. And she's an artist. She's a visual artist. She's a brilliant painter, beautiful graphic designer. She was studying, the user experience and in technology, and she lost her sight. And that I'm ready to come home now. She's ready to come home now, but she can't. She can't. So dealing with that new reality for her is so far beyond landing in Italy.
Mhm.
But, you know, Glenna, I hadn't made the connection until you asked the question. But I know that that experience is helping her today.
Yes.
And I'm very proud of the way she's handling it. She has very, very rough days. And then she has moments of kind of exuberance in small things,
Mhm.
the accomplishment of small things. So to your question, and the question behind your question, perhaps, a lot of times when we're inviting other people into their challenges, whether it's our kids or anybody else that we love, care about, it feels scary for us. And our own fear about what we're encouraging other people to do might hold us back from encouraging them to do it,
Yeah.
from looking for that opportunity for them.
That is
And I
right.
think we have to be brave in ourselves to encourage other people to to literally inculcate courage in another person requires courage in ourselves. Oftentimes, the more we love them, the more true that is, probably.
Thank you very much. I wish her all the best.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Glenna.
Thank you, Glenna.
And great job, Steve, as always. And appreciate the vulnerability of family, because that is a big part of why we do what we do. Nafritha, you had something else. You had a second question. I want to honor that.
Thank you so much. So while I'm listening, before I get into my question, if I'm allowed, Steve, you said something that I didn't catch. Cultivate love. You ran down this thing, but you said it so fast. Can you repeat it again, please,
Sure.
so I could jot it
Sure,
down? And
absolutely.
then I could ask you my question.
Yeah. So the LEAP framework, love, energy, audacity, and proof, right? So it's cultivate love, generate energy, inspire audacity, and provide proof. So those verbs are just as important as what they're modifying. So generate energy means that it's not enough for us to be energetic. We want to generate energy in the environment around us, in the people. When you walk into the room, do you generate more energy when you walk into the room or when you walk out of it? That's a good starting question. So you want to put more energy into the room than you're taking out. We've all known people who are energy suckers, right? Inspire audacity means not just to be audacious, have a bold and blatant disregard for normal constraints in order to change things for the better, but to inspire other people into their audacity, like we were just talking about. And then provide proof is, yes, we want proof from other people that they're trustworthy and et cetera. But as a leader, I need to prove myself to the very people that I'm asking to follow me. So that's how that fits together.
Okay. Thank you so much. That's brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Nafritha, when you listen to the audiobook that he shared in the chat, which is book 1, Radical Leap, he will dive into all those in detail.
Oh, okay.
But you didn't get to your question yet.
No. So my question is, and you kind of like set me up for the question, right? Because you told us basically about your initial passion, like Angus. Angus always wanted to open up a restaurant. That was her passion. However, with the encouragement of her family and probably what she thought was the right thing to do, she got into nursing stuff. But that wasn't her thing. That wasn't her frequency, right? So my question is on that, right? You were able to maneuver and find your frequency. Even listening to you talk, if I had to guess just from this little moment, I heard you say creative expression is your thing. So I don't know, is that your frequency? But that wasn't my initial question. I guess my question was, what are the two things that help you find your frequency, right? Because Agnes is telling us that loud static is annoying, but loud music that you enjoy is exhilarating. So, can you share with us some tips that you utilize in finding that frequency? And I guess the last part to that question is, has that frequency changed for you over your development and stages of your life?
Great. Wow. Really good questions. Okay. So let me offer you a couple of ideas. So a good starting place, and again, this is a general question that's going to vary from person to person, is in a values clarification kind of a process, right? Which I talked about in the book a little bit. So what if you were to look at the most important values or operating principles in your life, and you can find values checklists and all that, they're readily available on the internet. And just go through and do a sorting kind of a thing. Narrow it down to your top 5. What are the top 5 most important things to you in terms of values? Family, spirituality, trust, whatever. But you have to interpret for yourself what those things mean for you. And if you have to narrow it down to 5, then you have to make a choice, the classic kind of Sophie's choice. And the only way you can make that choice is by getting really, really clear on how you define those things. That's the value of it. And then if you take those 5, then you have to narrow it down to 1. Not that you're excluding everything else, but that one, what's that one thing that kind of is all encompassing that you could fold the other ones into if you needed to. That's your station, as it were, right? Your frequency. So that's one approach. And it's more of a thought-based approach. A feeling-based approach would be more intuitive. And that's just noticing how you respond to the activities that you engage in every day. What are the things that really kind of, you feel it in your chest, right? It's like, oh man, I love this. There's something about this that just feels right. And then there are other things that just feel off. And become more conscious and aware, and start taking some notes in your WUP about what are some of those things. And if you do the reflection on it and the analysis of it, you'll tease out what that frequency is. So a combination of those two things, I think, could be really helpful. As to my frequency in the book, which again, I wrote 18 years ago, I said it was service or freedom. Sorry, freedom. And freedom is still a huge thing for me. I've built my life that way. I spend my time the way I choose to spend my time. It's always been important to me. And when I got clear on that, then, it became part of my decision-making process as to where I'm going to invest my time. Is this something that's going to give me more freedom, or is this something that's going to lock me in? So for example, if one of my clients came to me today and said, I want you to come in and be our head of leadership development for our company, which means you got to, give up that other stuff that you're doing and come work for us, but I'll pay you $1 million a year to do it. What's that going to do for my freedom? Not much. So the answer would be no. And then I would try to find some other way to approach it if I could. So for you, what is it? That's the question. Now, creativity is part of that. But the way that I've kind of folded it in is creativity is freedom of expression. My relationships, my friendships are very, very important to me. That's the greatest currency that I have in my life. I have incredible friends all over the world. And it's freedom of the heart. It's the freedom to have friendships with anybody I choose, no matter where they live and what kind of person they are and what their beliefs are and what their, it's so for me, it all kind of folds into freedom. For you, it's going to be something else, most likely. So it's that exploration of what that is, and that will serve you for forever. And it could change, but it'll serve you to revisit it as well.
Awesome question, Aretha. Great focus for us. I can't wait to see the logic and emotion, feeling show up. I just don't want anybody channeling their inner sloth as their spirit animal. Okay. We're not going to use that as the feeling, how good it feels to lay there. Right. So what else do you guys have? What other questions, comments? What else for Steve as we wrap up this hour? There's a couple things I want to make sure we cover at the end. So I am seeing Celeste. Mike Hott, what do you got, my dear?
I just was curious, who's Cam?
So I'll answer that question as it relates to all the characters. So the one of the greatest compliments that I can get as a writer, and it always creates a little bit of an awkward moment, is when somebody will say to me, not who's Cam, but how's Cam? How's Cam doing? Did he ever get it? It's like, how do I break this to you? There is no Cam. It's a fictional character. So Cam is a composite. Cam is a character that I created to be that guy that everybody knows. There's a Cam pretty much everywhere. And so I have a great deal of fun with these characters because they're all based. Some are based on individual people, but most of them are based on a few different people as a composite or an archetype, as it were. So in the book that I'm writing now, I'm in the same style. I'm narrating it. I'm bringing back characters from the previous books into this one, and as I mentioned, Jim Kouzes and Barry Posner are also in the book as themselves. So it's part of the creative brush stroke is trying to decide that line between fiction and reality. But I'll tell you a story. This is freaky. So I'm about a third of the way through the book, and the story revolves around Janice from the Radical Leap and her crisis, kind of a values crisis in her business and how she's dealing with it and the consequences of it. She's trying to do what she says she will do, and there are forces at play that seem to conspire against her doing that. That's the premise. So it's her whole story is the kind of the drama of dealing with that. So I sent it to a friend of mine in the UK just to get his high level feedback on it. And he called me up and he said, this story is exactly what's happening with one of my clients right now. She went through, he said, I know her. I know his client. She was the CEO of a just a ridiculously amazing technology company. She got forced out. She did this whole thing, and it exactly paralleled the book. And he said, I didn't want to send it to her because I thought she would think that I was telling you what was going on with her, and you were putting it in the book. So in my mind, I'm creating this fictional, semi-fictional sort of a scenario and character. But what makes these characters work is that they're relatable because we experience people like that or scenarios like that. So it's always very gratifying when that comes home.
My follow-up then on that, Steve, how the heck did you wind up in the mortgage industry with it?
My son was in it at the time. Yeah. And I was hearing stories. And I thought, okay, this is a good petri dish for this kind of a thing.
Everything around real estate is a good petri dish. So yeah. Do we have anybody else? One last question before we close out today and get Steve on his way. I always guys give you the countdown. Oh, Jeanette jumped in right before the mat got hit. What do you got, Jeanette?
I just want to say thank you, Steve. Also, there's so many things that I wish I could have written them down while I was here, but I'm glad I got to hear them. So just thank you. Thank you for the dream that they have that makes it possible for others to follow theirs. So count me in that. Thanks.
Well, thank you,
Blessings to
Jeanette.
you.
Hey, where are we going? Where are we driving to?
Where am I driving? I'm driving to my ethics class.
Oh, wow, cool.
So
It's a good warm up.
yeah, it
I also saw one more mic go hot at that same moment. Who was that? I want to respect it.
That was me.
All right. What do you got quick, Glenna?
I lost my train of thought. Oh, okay. It's amazing that Cam was a fictional character, and I just love what you were doing with him. And at the end of the day, he demoted himself at his job.
Yeah.
And because I feel like even though he was saying, I don't know much about myself and things like that, he didn't want to participate at the dinner, participate in the conversation. But at the end of the day, he learned a lot for him to demote himself.
Yeah. So the choice that I made with Cam, the obvious choice would be for him to have some kind of a deep, revelation and have him change to be this superhero kind of a guy. It's like, no, that's kind of cheesy, I think. And it's not the way it usually happens. So what I tried to do was give him just, show a glimmer, right? Show a glimmer, because oftentimes that's the way it happens. There's something, as resistant as we are, there's something that sticks, and that could potentially be the beginning of a new journey. So thank you for acknowledging that. And that's, it's true for a lot of us, right? We like to think that breakthroughs and transformations happen in an instant. And for some people it does, but for most of us, it's little bits here and there that we try. And then one day something happens and we look back and go like, oh, wow, I really have changed quite a bit.
Yeah, you ever have that moments where one of your coaching clients comes to you, Steve, and goes, I heard this amazing thing and I'm going to implement. And you're like, I've been telling you that for years. And yet a different
Never.
voice.
That never happens. What are you talking about?
So, hey, a couple things for me, my friend. As always, huge gratitude for you, for your life's work, for what it's done, for your heart of service, for showing up here and sharing with my community on a regular basis. I want to be a little audacious and extend an invitation because, as you have glimmered from early on in the conversation, I am now living in Puerto Rico, literally on the eastern tip. And I would love to plant the seed between now and Easter of a mastermind here in Puerto Rico, a leadership mastermind. That you could come and play and we could get some real significant leaders in and around you in that conversation. So I want to invite you to that, let you know we got housing, we got food. We just need you in the knowledge. How does that sound?
That sounds really compelling. And I'll share something with you that I have not shared with anybody except my wife / business partner and another colleague of mine. We're going to be doing a program here I'm in Kansas City, by the way. I moved from San Diego to Kansas City 2 years ago because, who wouldn't? I moved here for the grandbabies, actually. It was grandbaby at the time. Now it's grandbabies. So it was very kind of them to give us another grandchild to further confirm the wisdom of our move here. But anyway, we're going to do a program here in Kansas City at my house. And it's going to be limited to 12 people. 3.5-day program. We're calling the Extreme Leadership Mastery Circle. And I've never done anything like this before. So it's, it's a bit of a mastermind. I don't think it applies. Not the same way that yours does, Russ. So it's interesting that you're proposing that at a time where I'm kind of thinking along those same lines of small, intimate groups. So yes, I would love to continue that conversation.
Fantastic. And then just let me know what I need to do to get on the calendar with you for the podcast. Can't wait to help there and share.
I sent you an email. There's a link in there. You can just go.
When did you send that?
Last week. I'll check again and resend it.
Okay, thanks. If you could do that, be at the top of my email. I haven't seen it yet. It might bounce in one of the many channels of Gmail. Again, my friend, thanks for being here. Guys, it has been an
Thank you all.
amazing time.
Thank you.
Love you all.